goodbye?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mickey, you want to tie your ribbon now?
Yeah.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God, God of our ancestors. Even 1,000 years in your sight are as a passing day, as a watch in the night. Our generations come and go, but you, O God, endure forever. We are always in your hand, Adonai, in death as in life. Help us who mourn the loss of Dorothy. May we look beyond this moment to realize that death cannot destroy the bonds of everlasting love. Sustain us with the knowledge of our faith, that you will not allow us to suffer oblivion. For you, Eternal One, have taught us the way of life. Through you we gain eternity. B'nomah we say, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'amet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, the righteous judge. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach. Yehi shem Adonai v'Volach. God has given, but now taken away, and still we praise God's name. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai hoi lo echzal. Minot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei minuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yanchileni v'magle tzedek l'manch. God is our shepherd, we shall not want. God causes us to lie down in green pastures, leads us beside still waters. God restores our soul and guides us in the right paths for the sake of the divine name. Even when, at moments such as this, we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil. You, God, are with us. Your rod and staff comfort us. You prepare a table before us, even in the presence of our enemies. You anoint our heads with oil, and our cup overflows. Ach tov v'chesed yildafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In Proverbs we read, Eshet chayil mi yimtzah. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is beyond rubies. Her husband put his confidence in her, and he lacked no good thing. She was good to him all of the days of her life. She opened her hand to the needy and the poor. She was clothed with strength and dignity. She looked to the future cheerfully, opened her mouth with wisdom, and guided her tongue with kindness. She oversaw the activities of her household, was never idle. Dorothy's children have come forward to bless her. Her husband in his time praised her. Many women have done superbly, but you have surpassed them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and wherever people gather, they will speak Dorothy's praise.
Dorothy, first off, you've been a wonderful mother-in-law, a wonderful mother to Mickey, and a wonderful grandmother to Zachary and to Casey. We will always remember you. You are so British. Now, you are loving, you are kind, you are generous, you were just wonderful, but you were a Brit. You always kept a stiff upper lip. And you rarely showed emotion. Oh, you showed love, but you were never emotional. You were just great, but I cannot help but always tell the story because you were a Brit. You had so many talents, except of course, you were a terrible cook. And we'll never forget the time at a Thanksgiving dinner. Ruth of blessed memory was there, Mickey, me, Casey, Zach. After dinner, we're sitting there, you finished the dishes, and you sat down with us and you lamented. 40 years in this country, no one ever asked you for a recipe. But that's okay. We bit our lips and we didn't laugh. But we never, ever forgot how much we loved you. Rest in peace, Dorothy.
Dorothy is missed and mourned by her daughter Mickey and son-in-law Ron, whom we just heard from, by her grandsons Zach and Casey, by her nieces Barbara Cogan and Toby Joseph, and her nephew Julian Kropman. She was preceded in death by her niece Helen Mirlees, her parents Sam and Ella Kropman, her brother Peter, her husband Sam, and her daughter Ruth. You heard from Ron about how Dorothy was what we think of as British. She was a fine, dignified, very, very special lady. She was always practical, and she was always realistic. Dorothy was born on October 15th, 1924 in Manchester, in England. Her father died when she was just under 10 years old. And she took charge, and in fact took care of her mother, Ella. During World War II, when Manchester, being an industrial center, was being bombed, she was probably a teenager. She served as an air raid warden, making sure that people were sheltering properly when the sirens went off and when needed, caring for the wounded. But eventually, along with many other children and young people, she was sent to the English countryside to be safer from the bombings. She was with friends from school. She and her friends enjoyed their freedom, enjoyed being taken care of by the families that took them in, and it was in many ways a wonderful, wonderful time for her, even though the war was going on. However, her mother needed her, and she was brought back to Manchester, sent to a different school, which she was not pleased with, but having already developed that stiff upper lip, she said nothing, plowed through it, and finished that school. As many of you know, it was the practice of the Jewish communities in England and in other places to host the Jewish service members, the Jewish servicemen at those times, who were serving in their neighborhood and their community. Sam, her husband, was serving in the payroll division of the United States Army Air Corps, as it was then known. They met at that time, married in August of 1944. Yes, she was literally a war bride. Sam was sent off to Greenland, but got back to Manchester in 1945, and finally he was able to bring Dorothy and Ruth to the U.S. in 1946. He brought them to Cleveland. They settled in the Heights area where Ruth and Mickey went to school. She was a wonderful mother and wife. She was quoted in the paper, I believe, when the debate about how much screen time, that means television time, was okay for children to watch. One wonders how she would have dealt with the current debate of screen time. She took steno classes and worked at the administrative office at Jewish Children's Bureau, also known as Belfair. She and Sam were ushers for the Cleveland theaters and rarely missed a musical. She was active in a group of war brides. She loved to play Chinrami Maj perhaps 4 times a week. She was a wonderful member of Temple Emmanuel. She was active in the sisterhood, initiated rummage sale that we used to have. These things have gone as well. And was very active in our study and our adult ed programs and came to classes. And I can personally remember how wonderful it was to have her in a class because she always raised the level of discussion, asked excellent questions, challenged very appropriately and in a very exciting way. She was a wonderful student of Torah. We remember how stoic she was even in the face. We remember how stoic she was even in the face of Ruth's initial bout with cancer, and then when the cancer returned. And I personally witnessed how tough she was dealing with that terrible tragedy of losing a child. She was very, very proud of both of her daughters and their accomplishments. She was particularly proud of Zach and Casey for what they have been able to accomplish and the lives that they have been able to build themselves. And she talked about both of you very, very frequently. In the last years of her life, she moved to Chicago to be near her family. It was a gift to both them and to her as she resided in the Gidwitz building, just a short distance from her family. But in these last few years, as her health was failing, she was ready to go. She knew that she had accomplished what she wanted, and she accomplished a great deal. Starting out life with being orphaned by her father very early on, not only surviving, but contributing to the war effort in her hometown, coming on what I understand was a difficult passage from England on ship to New York, making a life for her husband Sam, her daughters here in Cleveland, and making her own life as well, a life where everyone not only loved her, but respected her and admired her as well. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of Dorothy Lessem, wonderful, wonderful lady, may that be with us forever. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead and do not hide your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, may their memory rest. Death is better than a life of pain, or eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, or for what is hidden from us. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, or our few days in eternity. The good things in this life last for a short time, but Dorothy's good name will live on forever. Yoshev b'Seitel Elyon b'Tzel Shaddai Yitlonan, Omar l'Adonai machziu b'tzudati Elohai evtach bo. For you who dwell in the shelter of the Most High and abide in God's protection, we say that God is our refuge and stronghold. It is God in whom we trust. God will save us from the trap and the plague. God will shelter us and will provide us with an encircling shield. We turn our eyes to the mountains. What is the source of our help? Our help comes from God, who is the maker of heaven and earth. God will not allow our foot to slip, and our guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is our protection at our right hand. The sun will not harm us by day, nor the moon by night. Adonai will protect us and guard us. Watch over our coming and going, now and forever. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Maromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kantfei HaShechina, Malot Kedoshim Tohorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazirim. Et nishmat achotenu shehalcha le'olama began Eden tiyeh menuchata ana bal harachamim hastireha b'seiter knafecha l'olamim utzlo chaim et nishmata Adonai u'nachlata compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of Dorothy Muriel Lesson, Dorothy, daughter of Ella and Sam, may she now go to her eternal home. May she find perfect peace in God's sheltering embrace, and may her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. When Amar we say, Amen. Lech tishalachech Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai yeimach, go your way, and may God be with you. Lech uchvod Adonai ya'asvech, go your way, and may the presence of God listen. Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalah v'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam li'omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitalech v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'elam yikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom v'omav, v'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sharav le'tzion v'Yerushalayim. May the presence of God comfort us, along with all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.